Hello fellow Unreal Engine developers. In my last video I showed you how to create these footprints in the sand. That was just over an hour long, but there's still more to show you, so I'm back with part 2 and I'm going to show you how to use footprint masks to blend materials together, and also quite a few of you were asking for particle effects as the feet hit the ground to throw sand into the air. So there'll be 2 parts to today's. Let's get straight to it. Welcome back to part 2 of this footprints tutorial. If you haven't done so already, make sure you've done the tutorial in the video shown in the description below and in the card above. And in that video I showed you how to achieve true or fake displacement. So you should have ended up with a character that can run around and leave footprints in the sand. So you only have to do the fake displacement section in order to continue with this tutorial. So if you didn't want to do the whole virtual textures, virtual height field mesh displacement, you don't need to. But you can still carry on with this tutorial even if you got that far. So once you've done that, you can come back here and I will show you 2 more things to do with footprints. The first area I'm going to cover is footprint masks. So I'm going to show you how you can use the masks to blend materials together in your footprints. And then I'm going to show you the particle effects attached to your foot in order to leave sand trails as you run around. If you're only interested in the particle effects, then you can skip to the future chapter. I had a few people ask me for that, so I wanted to make sure I covered that as well. So let's get on with the mask section first. If you go to your landscape, find your material, should be bright desert sand, although you might have chosen something different for yours. Browse to that, open it up, and then in the hierarchy open up the parent surface material or parent material. So we don't need the material instance anymore, and you should have something like this. If you did the fake displacement, then all we did was created the material attributes with the normal changed in order to give the illusion of the footprint depth. If you did the full displacement, you'll have some extra nodes in here to do with calculating the height and putting out runtime virtual textures. But in both cases you're going to have the same node here, and you'll notice there are 2 additional outputs, this deform mask and this normalized deformation mask, and that's what we're going to talk about in the first part of today's tutorial. So these 2 things do similar things, but they're slightly different. If I hover over it, it says for the deform mask it just checks whether there's a deformation in the current position. So this is like a switch. It's either on or off. If you have a footprint or a trail in the landscape, then it will be 1, and if there's nothing there it'll be 0. Whereas this one is a blend depending on the brush you use to create your trail. So this will have feathered edges, and this is probably the more useful mask for today's tutorial. Certainly this one is useful where you want to switch features on and off in where the trail is. So let me show you the difference between both of these. If we let's just take the normal out of the equation for now. So just attach your normal here directly so that we don't have any deformation. And first of all we'll look at the deform mask. So plug that into your base color, save, and if you go back to your desert it should be black because we've got no color in there at the moment. Go into play mode, and as I run around you'll notice that wherever I leave a trail, that deform mask is a value of 1, or white in this case, but there's no graduation between 0 and 1. It's either on or off. So if I choose the other mask, so I go to take the normalized deformation mask and plug that into the color, save, and now if I press play, you'll notice that it's got feathered edges. So the mask here is dependent on the brush that you used when you write the footprint trails. So different brushes will have different effects, but you can see that it's more of a grayscale effect, and this is what we're going to use today in order to effectively put things in the footprint textures, either blend a new material under the existing material or change some attribute. So let's go back to the surface material. Let's now plug the normal from the deformation back into the normal, and now you'll see that when we go into play mode, you can see that now it looks like that white texture is within the footprint. But as I said, it's just a mask at the moment. So let's do a simple example before we do a blending of two materials. So let's plug the base color back in here for now. So what we can do is we can use the mask in order to blend between the existing color and some other attribute, or actually you can blend between any of these attributes, but let's use color as an example here. So what I'll do is I will press 3 on the keyboard and left click on my mouse, and that will create a vector 3 or a color node. Double click to open it up, and I'll make it green. So 0 red, 1 green, 0 blue. And then what I'll do is I'll take the output from this normalized deformation. Actually, I'll take the output from the color first. And if you type lerp and choose this one here, linear interpolate, what this does is it allows you to blend between two attributes or two values controlled by this alpha channel. So this will be wherever the value of the alpha is 0. This will be wherever the value of 1, and it'll blend in between or interpolate in between. So what we actually want is we want the base color at the top, because we want that where there is no trail. We want the green in the B channel, and then we want our normalized deformation to control the blend. And then we'll plug the output of this back into the color. So what we should end up with is green wherever the trail is. So let's save and go back into play mode. Okay, nothing changed at the moment, but as soon as we run around, we have green wherever the deformation mask is. So this could be some kind of toxic sludge under the desert. So that's a simple example of blending, but what you often want to do is blend two materials together. So say you were running, probably not so much in a desert, but say you were running in snow and there was grass underneath, you might want the grass material to be uncovered under the trail. So we want to use that mask to blend between two materials. So let's show you how to do that next. So with your surface material open, well, first thing we need to do is we need to get hold of a new material. So if you go to your window menu and choose bridge, Quixel Bridge, you can choose whatever material you want, but for my example, if I typed coal soil and I got this powdered coal and soil, so you can see here it's a very sort of dark material that'll probably show nicely underneath the desert, even though it's not wholly realistic for the environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download that. You'll probably have to press the download button here. Medium quality will be fine. So once you've downloaded it, just add it to your project, and it'll create in the Megascan surfaces folder, it'll create another folder called powdered coal and soil beside the bright desert sand that you already downloaded. Okay, so you can close that down now, and what we'll do is go back to our surface material, and what we want to do now is we want to get rid of the green lerp here. and then you can plug your base color back in. And what we want to do is we want to create another material that we can blend with based on that normalized deformation mask. So the easiest way to do this is to bring up your content browser with Control and Space, find the powdered coal and soil folder, and click on all of the shift click. So you've selected all three of these textures, not the first material instance, and drag it in to some blank space above here. So you should end up with 3 textures. Let's organize them like this. So the first texture is the color or diffuse texture. The second one is the ambient occlusion, roughness and displacement, and the last one is the normal. And so what we need to do now is we need to make material attributes, plug the RGB of the first texture into the base color. The green channel of the second texture holds the roughness, so plug that into the roughness. And the RGB of the third texture you plug into the normal. And we ought to have some specular values as well, otherwise you know, we might have it fully reflective or not. So if you press 1 on your keyboard and left mouse click, it'll provide you with a scalar parameter. I suggest you make it something like 0.2, so it's not very reflective, just a little bit, and plug that into the specular. And now let's just put a comment around this and say dirt material. So we've now got the material in isolation. We don't have the UV coordinates yet, but what I suggest you do is I suggest you take this first node here, just move it up, drag around it and just move it up slightly so it's in line. This first tiling node allows you to specify, as the name suggests, the tiling and rotation. So this result is the UV coordinates after tiling. So I suggest you take the result of this and plug it into the UVs of each of those 3 samples. So that means the tiling of the dirt texture will be the same as the tiling of the sand texture, which is fine for this example. So now we have material attributes for dirt material, and we have material attributes for the sand material. So how do we use the deformation mask to blend between them? Well, there isn't a lerp feature, but there is a very useful node for blending material attributes. If you right click and type blend material, you can see blend material attributes, and effectively it's similar to a lerp, but it blends all of the attributes of the material between A and B based on this alpha channel. So what we'll do is we'll take the output of the sand channel here and plug it into our main A. That's what we want to be where there's no trail. We will then take the output of our dirt mask. Actually, let's not do that first. Let's do a test first of all, just to see if this dirt mask works. Just take the output of the dirt mask and plug it directly into the output of the MS surface material. I just want to see if this actually works first before we try to do anything more sophisticated. So let's save this, go back to our desert, and you can see straight away that we have this dark rocky texture with a very slight bit of reflectiveness. And that's what we want to be underneath our sand. Okay, so the first part of that works. So go back to the surface material. Now, continue where we left off. In the blend material attributes, we'll connect the dirt material to the B channel. And now we want to blend based on the normalized deformation. So plug that into the alpha. And finally, plug the output of this into our final output node. So now this will be mainly desert sand from here, but with some dirt where the mask of the footprints is. So save that. And we'll go into play mode. And we're still getting the deformation, but I can't really see the rock underneath. And that's because the normalized mask isn't really powerful enough to show the ground underneath. What I mean by that is it's in the range of 0 to 1, but there's so little at the 1 range that we're not masking much of the rock material. So in order to see more of the rock underneath, we just need to increase the power of the mask, and we can do that with a simple multiply. So come back to your surface material, and from the normalized deformation, drag out and hit your multiply button, and let's just multiply it by 2. So all it means is that instead of the range of 0 to 1, we'll have the range of 0 to 2. So we'll have more of the upper range of the mask, would hopefully show more of the rock in between. But we still want it to be between 0 and 1 before we plug into the alpha. And to do that, we just take out of here and put saturate, and saturate has the effect of clamping the value between 0 and 1 again. And so we'll then plug that into the alpha. So this should show more now of the rock through the trail. So save that. Go into play mode. And now you can see, especially if I run around a bit here, now you can see the rock underneath much more clearly. And if you wanted to see more of the rock, you could make the footprint wider. In the last tutorial we showed you how you can change the footprint component to make the footprint wider. But as I said, although this is a kind of a bit of an unrealistic example, because we'd expect to have more sand underneath the desert, you can think of this application in areas where something has fallen, some material has fallen on top of something else, like snow on fields or rock. That would make more sense to apply this material. So let's move on now to looking at particle effects. A number of you said to me that in order to sell the effect of running through the sand, we really needed sand particles every time you planted your foot in the sand. So I'm going to show you that now. You can tweak this effect to your liking. You might want to have a different particle effect, but the key thing I want to show you here is how to synchronize it to the footsteps. So or footprints, I should say. I kept saying footsteps in the last video when I meant footprints. So the first thing I want you to do is I just want you to get some extra starter content. The reason being is that there is some dust particle material in the starter content that I want to use. So go into your content drawer, go into the add feature, and in here if you do add feature or content pack at the top, go to content at the top and choose starter content and just do add to project. And what you'll find is it will add this starter content folder with lots of bits and pieces, blueprints, audio files, particles, materials, just things that you can use in your project. So we just want to do that first, then close those down. And what we'll do next is, again, we'll open up the content browser, and at the top level I'm just going to create a new folder just to keep things organized, and call this FX. Double click on that, and we want to create a new Niagara system. So right click and in Effects choose Niagara system, and what we'll do is we'll do new system from selected emitter. I'm going to choose one that already exists. So click next, and the one I want to use is the omnidirectional burst. So click on that and plus to add it and finish. And it will ask you to name it, so call it NS for Niagara System, Foot Dust. And then if you open it up, you should see here a exploding particle. You might have a background here, it doesn't matter. I've just switched my background off. But this is sort of exploding particles, and it's using the default sprites at the moment. So let's just change a couple of things. We'll come and tweak this later on. As I said, the important thing here is getting it firing at the right time, and then we can come and tweak it. So if you go to the sprite renderer, at the moment the material is default sprite material. So what we'll do is we'll change that. If you click on it and type dust, you'll see this dust particle, dust particle. So you can select that, and it's a 2x2 sprite, so you need to change this sub image size here to 2 and 2, and now you can see it works there. The dust particle is slightly better because it's got a more sort of faded edge. It's not quite so bright, so it probably looks slightly more realistic. So leave all the other settings as they are for the moment, just save this, but leave it open so that we can come back and tweak it later. As I said, the key thing we want to do next is to make sure it fires at the right time and in the right location. So in order to get it attached to the feet of our character, go to your world settings. If you don't see world settings here, go to Window, World Settings, and make sure it's checked on, and go to your default pawn class BP third person character and browse to that and open it up. And if you go to the viewport and pan around, we should find there's our character. If you select the character mesh here, you'll see all of the information regarding this character. So we're using the Quinn character, which is the female mannequin, and it's using this animation class, animation blueprint Quinn C. So this is in the animation blueprint. We want to find out where the animations are, and we want to attach the particle effect to the when the foot hits the ground. So browse to the animation blueprint, open it up, and it says it's a child anim of ABP Mani. So what we could do is we can go to the parent class ABP Mani. If you go right to the top right where it says parent class, you can browse to that and open that up. Okay, and we'll get rid of ABP Quinn now, we don't really need that. And you can see that there is this state machine. Make sure there's two graphs, event graph and animation graph. Make sure you're on the anim graph. Go into the locomotion, and it's pretty simple. It goes from idle to a walk run animation. So we want the walk run animation, and then go into this blend space for walk run. So this is the main animation control for this character. And if you want to see it working, hold the control button down and you can drag this green cross around. You can see that when I'm stable, I'm doing nothing, and then I walk and then eventually run. And so there are 4 animations involved in this. They're listed on the left hand side here. There's actually, sorry, 3 animations. This walk in place, which is very for very slow movement, walk forward for medium movement, and run forward. Now I'm not really bothered by the walk because most of the time you're going to get into the run animation almost straight away. So I'm only really interested in the run animation. So browse to the run animation and open it up. Close down your content browser. And what you'll see straight away is they're very helpfully put on sync markers for when the left foot is down and the right foot's down. If I pause this, you can see that if I go to this frame, that sync marker is when the left foot's down, and this sync marker is when the right foot's down, or the right foot is down. So we can use these frames as references to play our particle system. So what we want to do is create another notify track. So go in here, notifies, add notify track, and we can call it particle effects. You don't have to call it anything, but it's just useful. And let's create one for the left foot first. So here where the left foot is planted, right click on our particle effects channel, add notify, and you can see that we've got play Niagara particle effect. So we can play that at the same time as the left foot is down, And if you select that and look in the details panel here, we can specify which Niagara system we want to play. So go in here and type dust and make sure you've got your NS foot dust selected. And then the other important thing is we want to attach it to a bone. So this is for the left foot. So if you type L and then from the drop down make sure you select foot L socket. This will be attached now to the left foot at this offset location. You can probably leave this as 0. It'll be in the middle of the foot, but that'll probably be fine. So that will now play and be attached to the left foot when that frame hits and the left foot's planted. So all we need to do now is copy and paste this to the other left feet. So if you right click and copy, and then what we'll do is we'll just right click on the other areas and paste for the left, and then just paste the first right one. We'll obviously need to make some changes. Select it, and we need to change the foot that it's attached to. So here type R and attach it to the foot R socket, the right foot, and again copy and paste it to the right foot marker here and here. So it put it that way, but it is in the right place. So now we have 6 particle effects playing at the, in fact, is that in the right location? No, not quite. Anyway, it doesn't matter if it's slightly out. So hopefully now, if we go into, let's save this. 2 final things we've got to do is if on the third person character with the mesh selected, because we've changed the animation for Manny rather than Quinn, we need to change the animation blueprint here to ABP Manny. That just saves us, it's virtually identical. It just saves us having to copy all of the anim graph stuff over. So compile and save. And if you go into play now, you'll think that nothing's happening, but that's simply because the dust particles are too small to see. So we need to increase the size of them. So come out of play mode, go to your Niagara system, and if you select the initialized particle on the omnidirectional burst, you'll see that there's a sprite size here. So if we choose it between 10 and 30, for example, to make them bigger, save that, and now if we go into play mode, you'll see as we run around there's a puff of white smoke. Doesn't really look like anything like sand at the moment, but at least it seems to be working. So every time the left and right feet hit the ground, particle system is spawned and does that omnidirectional burst. So last thing we need to do is really just tweak the particle system to get the particles that we want. So I'll just tweak a couple of parameters for you, then I'll leave it to you to tweak it to your desired taste. So let's come out of play mode, go to the particle system, and what I'll do is if I go to the spawn burst instantaneous, I'm going to make it so there's a lot more particles coming out. So let's do 1000, and then I probably need to make them smaller again. So go to the initialized particle, let's make them between 5 and 15, and then color is the main thing I want to change. So go to the color here, and what I'll do is I'll saturate it sort of in this sort of orangey section, and then I'll take the value here, i.e. the brightness of it, sort of down low here, and click on save, and let's see what that looks like. A bit dark and probably a few too many particles, especially when I get close. So let's do a final tweak. So let's make it a little bit lighter and change the number of particles to 600. Save that. Go into play mode. And that's okay. And again, I could play around with that. Probably want more particles again. Probably was right at 1,000 and just make them slightly smaller. So I'll leave you to play around with that. Hopefully you found these tutorials useful. Stay subscribed and I'll see you in the next one. So bye for now.